In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace your rear wheel bearing on your Mercedes-Benz C300. It's located behind your rear wheel. Using a 17mm socket, we are going to remove our wheel. Make sure you have a hand on the top. And remove it. Using an 18mm wrench, I'm going to remove our caliper. I'm going to switch to a ratchet wrench once I free up these bolts. You can use a socket down here if you want. The top one, you can't really get one in unless you remove your sway bar link or use a swivel. Now we're going to remove this top one. Again, you could switch to a ratchet wrench after you crack it loose. Make sure you get it out of there before you get jammed up. And keep a hand on your caliper. I have a caliper hanger ready to go. So you're going to need a bungee cord or a caliper hanger. Slide that off, take the bolt out. And now I'm going to hang this up over here. Make sure you don't kink the hose. Using a T30 Torx bit, I'm going to take off this screw and remove our rotor. Make sure it's lined up so you can reach your spring. And we're going to take out these two holders by pushing in with some needle nose pliers. And removing them. They look like this. Do the same with the bottom one. Now this is free, so when you undo the bolts in the back, you can take the bearing out. We're going to unpeen our axle nut and then remove it. I'm just using a punch. Now we're going to remove our axle nut with a 32mm axle nut socket. Make sure it's a 12-point. Next, we're going to take the wheel bearing out with hub. To do that, we're going to remove 4 bolts. There's one there, here, and 2 on the other side. We're going to use an E12 socket and a swivel, mostly, to get those out, but you're going to use your own combination of whatever works for you. But it is possible with a swivel and a socket. Another option is you can take the sway bar link nut off and just get that out of your way if you don't have a swivel to do it. Once you crack it loose, you can take it out. Do the same for the rest. Once you get it out enough where it's like loose enough to use a wrench, it might be easier, which is what I'm doing. I'm just going to take it out the rest of the way with this 10mm wrench, even though it's not a typical head on it. For a 10mm wrench, it will work to get it out the rest of the way. We are reusing our hub, so I'm making sure I'm hitting this with a piece of wood in between. And I have it bungeed up in case it falls. But after you unbolt it, it should come out. Ours is just a little stuck. There we go. I'm going to just make sure our axle is free. Again, since it put itself back in. Again, we're dealing with a rusty car here, so you may not have to do any of this. All right, there we go. Now we're going to take this over to the press and push out this hub. We have our bearing and hub set up in the press, and now we're going to press out the hub. I'm going to release the press. And take our bearing off. We have our hub in the vise. We need to take this race off. So I'm going to heat this up evenly till it gets really cherry red, and then we're going to knock it off with either an air chisel or a regular cold chisel. There's many ways to take the race off a hub. This was just one of them. We're going to press our bearing onto our hub. I have it set up in the press. To do that, make sure you support the inner race when you're pushing the bearing onto the hub. That feels good. And release it. Make sure it's flush. Looking good. And now we're going to install it. You're going to want to clean this up before you reinstall anything. So I'm going to use a wire brush and get the rust and whatever out of there. The two holes on the bottom are spread out a little bit more. These ones are closer together, so make sure you have these on the bottom when you're installing. It's pretty subtle, but you'll notice it. And now we're going to line everything up. I'm going to hold my axle on the other side and pick it up slightly so I can fit the bearing in. I'm going to get it past the shoes. And you're going to turn your bearing till it lines up. You can use a screwdriver to do that, or something like it. Make sure the holes line up. And make sure your axle is engaged and lined up properly. And now I'm going to get one of my bolts started. Just go for the one that's easiest first. Before beginning, make sure you have all 4 bolts in the holes ready to go, and then your axle following after that. To get the bolt started, you might want to use a 10mm 1/4" socket with a 1/4" ratchet. You can only use it for a little bit just to make sure the bolts are going in properly. But because this axle is sticking out a little bit, it's really hard to get that Torx socket in there. So only do this for a little bit to get the threads going, and then you're going to switch to the proper socket. So I'm going to go around and just get it going. Make sure they're going in all around the same amount. And just move it to various bolts throughout. And then once you get it close to being almost seated in fully, you can switch it out. If you took your sway bar link off, leave it off until you're done putting these bolts in and torquing them. Now that we've tightened up these bolts or snugged them up, we're going to torque them to 51 foot-pounds. So now I have my Torx bit on for the torquing. Now we're going to go to the opposite one, which is down here. There we go. Now I'm going to go to directly above and get that top one. And then we'll go back to the other. We'll crisscross to the other side in the back on the bottom. There we go. I'm using a long extension and a swivel to do this one. Now we're going to put our springs back in our parking brake shoes. So line up the slot in the shoe with the backing plate. Get your needle noses ready and insert it so the hook is going in the same direction as the slot. Push in. There you go. And do the same on the other one. Turn the axle so I can line it up. Push in and lock it in. Now we're going to put our axle nut on. Start it by hand. We're going to zip it on, and then we'll torque it after we put our brakes and rotor back on. Let's put some anti-seize in our hub. Put our rotor on. Make sure you put your rotor on lined up with that screw that holds it on. This one right here. Let's put our screw in. You just want to snug this one up. Now let's put our caliper back on. Now we're going to get our caliper back on. Remove your hanger if you had one. Just slide it back on. Line it up. And get a bolt started. Now I'm going to get my lower one started as well. Now we're going to tighten these up. I'm going to use my ratchet wrench to tighten this up. If you have your sway bar link off, it's going to be a little easier to get to. So let's torque these to 84 foot-pounds. And do the same on the top. Now you can put your sway bar link back if you did take it off. If not, you can move on to putting your lug nuts in 2 holes. And we're going to lower the car down, and we're going to torque our axle nut. The procedure to torque this axle nut is you're going to torque it to 125 foot-pounds first. So let's do that. As you can see, I have a pry bar between 2 lug nut studs. So once you get it to 125 foot-pounds, then you're going to go another 45 degrees. As you can see, I added another lug nut just for stability reasons. Now you can remove your pry bar, remove your lug bolts. Make sure you line up your wheels and get that first one started. You are going to need your socket to do that. And continue the rest of the way. Now we're going to snug these up. Do not over tighten. We're going to tighten them in a star-like pattern. We're going to torque our wheel to 96 foot-pounds. We're going to do that in a star-like pattern.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.